What's going on, everybody? Seeley here. Today we're going to talk to you a little bit about editing. This is my very first editing video. Hopefully you learned something new. Here we have an image that was shot last weekend out in San Diego. This is a glitter bass shoot. Let me show you the before image. This is the before, and then this is after doing auto adjustments. And so I'll show you what we did there. Let's go to reset. So here is the original image. First thing I do is I'm working in Capture One. First thing I'm going to go to auto adjust, which looks great the way it is. And then I'm going to go to these are the different styles in Capture One. I'm going to go to Oriental Blues, which is kind of a weird name. Oriental is it's a rug. So a lot of times people refer to me as Oriental. Just so you know, this is the age of PC. Personally, I don't care, but in case there's someone that does care, don't get shot by the Orientals. Alright, so I'm going to just play around with the highlights and shadows. This is going to be personal preference. I don't like a lot of contrast. I like to see, like if you look at the hair, I like to see a little bit of detail in the hair. This is his personal preference. I mean, it's whatever floats your boat, I guess. I'm going to go to the crop tool. Let's go to the original crop. What I'm looking at here is I want to bring in the crop a touch. I want to bring it in so that way the head is on the edge, and then also want to cut off right at the knee. Typically I would not be a fan of this little phantom hand underneath, but for this video we're just going to deal with it. I'm going to go into edit with Photoshop. Now one thing I will have you know, I use 0.001% of what Capture One can do. I'm not the most technical person when it comes to editing. I do rely on a lot of tools and assets. For example, Infinite Unify is a tool that I picked up last week, and it is brilliant. What it's doing here is it's picking up tones. It's kind of like a gradient map. I don't even know how to describe it properly. But if you look at the before and after, before without it, I think it looks fine. But with it just adds a little bit more consistency with the skin tones. And then it just makes it a little bit warmer in general, because it's giving a lot of the skin tones to the outer areas of the image. I explained that horribly. Sorry. Alright, next up, I'm going to go and do frequency separation. So this is where we're going to see that I'm very, very non-technical. If you want like really smart people talk, this is not the channel. Just to give you a warning. Layer 1, I'm going to go into filter. I'm going to go into noise and median noise. I've got this radius set to 12. You're supposed to go in and each image is supposed to be a little bit different. I just keep it as a standard. I try to keep it as simple as possible. I try to minimize the amount of time I spend in each edit. Top layer, I'm going to go into image, apply image. I'm going to change the layer to layer 1, invert, add scale to, this is based on the 16-bit image, and then change the blend mode to linear light. Alright, so I'm going to go to B for brush, change this to mixer brush, use the brackets to change the size of the brush, zoom in a little bit, and what I'm going to do here is I'm looking for ranges of color. For example, I want to keep the highlights mixed in with the highlights, midtones with the midtones, and shadows with the shadows. But I mainly just want to make sure that I've got some blending, that I'm blending the colors in, so that way it's not super splotchy. So here I'm going to try to create a triangle underneath the eye. I'm going to try to maintain the general flow of the face. I'm pushing some of the lighter midtones into the shadow area underneath the nose, the upper lip. And I'm going to try to soften this a little bit. If you zoom in on the nose, you see right there, there's it's not splotchiness, but it's not as smooth in terms of the tones. So I'm just gonna go back and forth there. There are retouchers right now that are screaming, saying, "What the hell is this guy doing?" I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest. But again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to minimize the amount of time that I spend in post, because if you get the majority of the image looking somewhat decent, here's the I'm going to the clone stamp tool next. Here's the secret. The secret is when you're shooting for Instagram, which most of the stuff that I shoot, it's meant for Instagram. People won't, very rarely will zoom all the way in, because the shelf life of an image on social media is about a day and a half. I don't have any scientific data to support that opinion that I just said, but if you look at, how many likes you get on images, the first hour is when your phone is going to go off nonstop, and then it slowly starts to slow down a little bit. And so the majority of your activity on each post is going to be in the first hour, the first 10 hours, 24 hours. I'm just making this stuff up. The majority of your action is going to be on the first day. The reason why that's important is because if you spend 10 hours editing one image, it's only going to get 1 day's worth of traction. Your time spent versus the exposure of said image, it doesn't match up very well. This is hard editing with that yellow circle thing popping up. Alright, so not a ton needed. I know some of you are going to be screaming at me because of the hair on the eye right there. I'll be honest, the reason why I didn't try to tackle that first is because that yellow button is bugging me. But hopefully it helps you keep track of where the cursor is. And this strand of hair, let's see if that does anything here. Again, I'm still using the clone stamp tool. Alright, so that got rid of some of it. Alright, so now the last step, we're going to go new layer, change the blending mode to soft lights, go back to brush, change this to a regular brush, and now I'm going to do a universal dodge and burn. And here, this is definitely not intense, it's definitely not pro by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going to the parts that are closest to the camera or the light source, or flatter parts which will reflect the light a little more. So you can see the before and after, so it definitely made quite a bit of difference. And I know you're saying, oh, that looks like crap. What are you doing? That doesn't look good at all. Well, I'll show you what I'm going to do after. And darken the eyelashes, makeup on the face, lips, and then when you see this before and after, so there's definitely a difference, but then I'm just going to drop the opacity down. So that just adds a tiny bit. Command Option Shift E to merge into a new layer. This is the before and after. The whole point of doing this is to show you that you don't need to be a retoucher. You definitely need to know how to do the basics, but if you're spending more time editing than you are, tweaking your lights, tweaking your composition, so that way you can pose the distractions out of the image, getting the right settings. When I first started, I spent most of the time trying to fix things in post that I was not doing properly when I had the model in front of me. And so my challenge to you is to try to minimize the amount of time you're spending on each edit. There are a lot of YouTube creators that teach you all the ins and outs of editing, and they can show you an edit that would take them 45, 50 minutes, an hour plus. It's nice. It might get you a few more likes, and maybe that's a strategy that works for you to try to get you some business. In my experience, the more I edit, that does not directly result in more money. It doesn't directly result in more business for me. You know, what really has worked for me is to focus more on the lighting, get the lighting to look good, shoot content that looks aesthetically pleasing, and then try to light for the face. Make sure that the lighting makes the face look appealing. Focus on the basics, and then when you're doing editing, it should just be adding a little bit of polish to the image so it doesn't look like a raw image. But if you can shift some of the focus away from editing and more into getting your composition and your camera settings and all that stuff, hopefully that will result in an increase in inquiries. But if you have any questions, definitely feel free to leave a comment down below in the comment area. If you learned something new, or if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out. And until next time, keep shooting.